What's up, YouTube? Draco here, bringing out a video today. I want to go over the May format and what I think the best decks are. But before we get into that, I want to thank you guys on 300 subscribers over the weekend. While I was at the regional, we hit 300. It was Sunday, and I was super pumped. I just got third at the regional, and we hit 300 the next day, and I was just super hyped. And I got a lot of deck profiles. I had 7, uploaded them all, and it was super awesome. I was super pumped to get those uploaded. And actually, currently as it sits, we're at 369 subscribers, which is just like, wow. I uploaded these deck profiles, and most of the time when I upload deck profiles, it gets me views. And, you know, they don't really translate to subscribers or people liking that or liking the video even. And recently with these last 2 regionals, I've been getting a lot of likes and a lot of subscribers who decide to subscribe to my channel, and they want to check out the content. So to anyone who's subscribed, who's new, and you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you very much for subscribing. I really do appreciate it. I hope you guys stick around for the other videos on my channel, because this isn't just a deck list profile channel, but you know, I really do appreciate it. So awesome. Thank you guys so much. Like I said, 369 is just unbelievable. That's 70 in the last like 2 days. So I think that's just absolutely just amazing. But now, yeah, let's get into this ban list, or not ban list, but this format list. And first off, I want to talk about I am using a tier system. I think every tier in this in my tier system are decks that are the best decks. So I think like tier 1 are just undeniably better than the other decks. I think more consistencies, more like that. But I think even the decks in tier 3, 2 and 3 can both top regional events, and maybe make a few, maybe tier 2 the decks will make a few YCS top cuts. And tier 3 might have maybe just a couple, very few, if any at all. But I think all these decks are viable for regionals, and they can top regionals and all that kind of stuff here. But for besides that, also every deck in the tier list is not in a specific order of which one I think is the best. I'll kind of give you guys my thoughts on that. Yeah. So let's get into the video. All right, guys. So first of all, tier 1, I'm gonna be saying Altergeists are super strong in this format. I think that the last few formats we've had have not been trap heavy at all. There's been very few decks that actually ran very many traps, if any at all, and it's been more negate boards. Altergeist is the new trap deck. It's very control oriented and very strong. It has some very strong plays. And I think that players have kind of gotten used to not really playing around too much back row, whereas Altergeist will actually set 4 a lot of the time, making it very hard to play around, and people just aren't used to that yet. So I think that's why that's one of these best decks. Plus now Hexia and Manifestation both got eroded to work like the OCG, making a few more of the combos just absolutely insane in the deck, giving it that small buff. So that's all I have to say for Altergeist. Now, getting to the next deck, and personally what I think the best deck of the format is, will be Sky Striker. And this deck is just super consistent. You never really lose card advantage, and it just keeps going off and off. It just has so many strong cards. There's really not much to say about it. It's one of the best engines and just craziest stuff we've seen ever in Yu-Gi-Oh. So it's just a very strong deck. I think there's just, yeah, that's all I really have to say. I don't know the deck all that well, but that's pretty much all I have to say. It's a very strong deck, very consistent, never loses card advantage, very strong. Now going into the next deck here, Goki. Goki once again got some more support in Flood, some direct, some indirect. But this deck is very consistent, and in extra links a lot of the time. If you guys don't know what an extra link is when you take up both link zones and your opponent has access to no link monsters. Adding on top of this, You can give your opponent Ibly, which only lets them special summon monsters by link summoning. So this locks them out of any link zones, and then makes them not able to special summon with this Ibly just stuck on the board. So very, very, very strong. It's just a super consistent deck, and it does crazy things turn one. The only issue with this deck I see is really hand traps and really hurt it. So that's the one thing about this deck, but I definitely think this deck's in the tier 1 and here. And last but not least in tier 1, so originally in tier 1, I actually had Trickstar in tier 2, but I moved it up to tier 1. And this is because I think with it not getting hit, and after the things I saw it do this weekend and some of the other things it's been doing, it's good enough to be called tier 1. I don't know if this deck will ever really top or like win an event just solely, like a big event. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the European nationals or some of those nationals aren't as big, but I'm talking about a big YCS in North America, or North American nationals and stuff like that. I'm not sure if we'll ever see it really win that, but this deck is very strong. Scapegoat's at 3, Reincarnation's at 3. The Droll Lock combo is still running around there, and with the added support of the Nightmare cards in the deck with Scapegoat, it becomes very, very strong. I'll be doing a video actually on the combos that you can do with this deck, and I think it's very strong. I just think it's a very strong choice for the format, just being untouched and whatnot. So next, we're going to be going down to tier 2. The tier 2, we're going to touch on Dino variants. I think the Dino engine didn't really get hit, and it's still a very strong engine. The only thing is 60 card is a lot less significant. You can actually still play 60 card because it's not as good without grass. Those grass sacks and left arm offering really hurts. I mean, it really hurts that deck, not being able to do that anymore. But it wasn't the main plays of the deck. But in my best interest, I don't think 60 cards is the best way to go. There's so many variants that you can be playing, which is like True King Dino, or just pure Dino, or just there's many variants of the deck you can play. So I have that here. I think this deck can always be good. I think just Ultimate Conductor Tyranno is such a good card, paired with Overtext Quapolis. It's just super, super strong. All right, so now this is the one that's going to be a little bit controversial. Some people might say this should have been tier 1 for me, but we're going to go into Spiral. Spiral, this deck is very strong. Don't get me wrong. Very, very, very strong with the Nightmare stuff. The only thing I have, the issue is very glass cannon-y. It loses to hand traps pretty easily if you know what to hand trap in the deck. But some people might argue it's not as much. The other reason, it's very similar to Goki. They make very similar boards, extra linked, with various negates. The cool thing about Spiral is it can go second, being able to break boards with Sleeper and break more boards with Super Agent and Tough. But the issue I have is that this deck does brick. You run bricks in the deck. You don't really want to draw your Spiral Resort. Yes, I know you can spin it back with your Unicorn and it doesn't become super problematic, but you also don't want to draw your Master Plan. That's where the deck kind of gets a little bit more bricky. You don't want to draw those cards. That's why I have it one tier under Goki, because Goki doesn't have as many bricks as Spiral does. As some people could say your Master Plan's your Garnet. And yeah, there's ways to go around it, but it ruins your plays. You're not going to have as great of a board. So this deck is very strong, though. I think it's still very strong. I think this is the best deck in tier 2. I might even, if I really wanted to go super into this, I would say it's tier 1.5, but I'm just trying to keep this simple enough for you guys and to let you guys know my opinions on it. And yeah. And then for the last deck in tier 2, I'm going to put as Invoked Mech Knight. I think this deck is still very strong, and it's not as interactive as it could be, or as interactive as the other decks of the format. It just doesn't do as much. The plays are pretty simple, pretty straightforward, pretty standard. That's the one issue with the deck. I think I think people have gone over having to get over a Mechaba. They aren't too worried about it as a deck anymore, but it's still there. It's still there, but I would probably put maybe this might be a little bit better than Dino, but definitely not even close to Spirals. But that's all I really have to say for that list, and whatnot. Now, let's talk about Pendulum Magicians, or Pendulum variants. I think Pendulums are still there. Pendulum is still a great mechanic, even with the nerf of Master Rule 4. We lost Astrograph Sorcerer, the Looper, and all that kind of stuff. But I think there's still variants out there that can do well. There's been a couple that I've seen that have actually pulled off a top 8 at a regional. I'm not sure how many players were at that regional, but I think it's very strong still. It's just not as good as it used to be. Yeah, that's all I really have to say. I think it's not as good as it used to be. It lost a lot of consistency, became a little bit more glass cannon-y. And yeah, so yeah, that's all I really have to say. Now, also, we're going to be going into True Draco. True Draco got hit on this list. We lost Masterpiece, but we gained other stuff from the banned section and the limited section to more unlimited areas now. So I think with these additions, the deck is still very strong. It can definitely top a regional. I'm saying that because it topped the regional I went to, and I didn't get that deck profile. I don't know where the guy went. He was the only one left. I didn't get, and I was like, well, I guess I just got to go, because it was just emptied out by the time I was done getting all the profiles. Now, I think this deck is very strong, but it did lose a key piece, which was Masterpiece. And it's very consistent, but it loses to so many things. I don't see this ever winning an event again, but I do see it being actually half decent. It's just being able to be very consistent, and you kind of rely on your floodgates a bit more now than you used to. Your True Draco, Apocalypse, and all that kind of stuff. You kind of try to tribute your opponent's monsters more often. Try to get rid of stuff, and it becomes a little bit more. It becomes very different, but it's still consistent and still good. All right, now for the biggest loser on this list, ABC. Now, the reason I'm saying ABC, the issue with this is that we lost an Ancient Fairy Dragon, and this was like a crazy big hit for this deck. If we had Ancient Fairy Dragon still unbanned, this deck, I think it would be tier 1. The consistency combos were absolutely insane with Justrudo making Ancient Fairy Dragon. Being able to end on the crazy boards they would, you would just scoop a lot of the time. This deck was insane, but the Ancient Fairy Dragon hurt it enough to slow it down enough where it's just not as consistent. It can't make as crazy of boards. It's just not as good. Unfortunately, like I said, I think this dropped from all the way from going to be tier 1 to tier 3. We might see a couple of these top regionals. I don't see these topping premier events at all. But that's all I really have to say. So that's my opinions. If I missed any decks, I'm sorry, guys. I'm not trying to hate on you. These are the biggest decks I see being as contenders. There's a lot of them. That's the reason why I did a tier list, because I think this format is so healthy. Just remember, these tiers are super, super close. It's not like you're gonna lose a tier 3 deck's automatically losing to a tier 1 deck. I think that any player piloting the right deck can win against any deck in this format. I think it's really great. I just think it's going to be a little bit harder, and you're going to have to play amazing. But I don't think none of these decks are unbeatable. I think any decks can beat any deck right now. Besides maybe Sky Striker, I think a lot of these tier 3s are going to have a lot of issues against the Sky Striker matchup. But besides that, these decks are super close, super tight. I just think these are the tier 1s to tier 2 to tier 3. They lose a little consistency down the line, and just being of how good they are. Honorable mention. I want to kind of just do an honorable mention to Mermails, because that deck is actually pretty good right now. I didn't include it into this because I just thought it'd just be too many decks. And I just wanted to kind of stick out with these 10 decks. Now, I think Mermails are really good because they have the one airplane that summons tokens. That's really good. Does some crazy things with the nightmare stuff. So I think that's really cool. But yeah, that's all I have to say, guys. Let me know what you think. Let me know if I'm wrong about things. I'm always open to criticism. I'm never saying my point's right and your point's wrong. But this is just my opinion, guys. All right, guys. We will see you later.